So good morning everyone, and thanks for showing up. This will be a crew position clinic, kind of the start of our Mixed Plus division, and we hope this goes for a long time. Willem approached me months ago and about this whole concept, and we've ran with it. And Sailing World has allowed us to be here at this event as the first big event, and so we're pretty excited about it. So we want to try to help people learn as quickly as possible. I'll be on the water today running some practice starts. I can zip around a little bit before and after. I think Dave's going to actually jump on with Willem's boat and get some video, so we'll get some other stuff. And just throughout the week, we're going to have a lot of things going on, which is awesome.
All right.
So, so here we're going to go over like kind of crew positions, and we're not going to hit everything just because we forget. But Willem's been sailing these boats since the beginning. I used to sail these boats. Last 2 years I've been helping you guys race instead. Willem, you want to say anything real quick first, and we'll keep moving on.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for helping make this a success. The last 3 nudes have been a little smaller fleets, and we were excited to have a bigger fleet, more women involved, and I think it's been a real big success. So just trying to keep that going, and whatever I can do to help, just let me know. I'm going to be around, and I'm excited. We have about 19 boats with this format, so I think it's a really great turnout, and maybe the start of something for the future. So I think it sounds like some of these regattas might continue with this.
All the nude regattas will have Mixed Plus. Any fleet that has, I believe, 10 plus one design boats in the fleet can sign up for Mixed Plus. So I know at this event we have a Melgus 2014, some Lightnings, and then a bunch of J70 teams. So that's awesome. So I think the best thing to do, since this is about crew positioning, is we'll just talk about the 4 to 5 spots on the boat.
Yeah.
And work our way back.
Okay, so, and I'll do my best. There's a lot to the boat handling. I think the biggest, most important part before we talk about the boat handling is to have super clear communication. Okay, so regardless of what the maneuver is, we just have to be really clear so the whole team is pretty switched on. So let's just maybe do a little bit. Some of you might not be used to the Velocitex, and so maybe we just do a little bit of the pre-start stuff. It'll help. Some of the classes don't allow them, we allow them, so just kind of maybe what you should do. Ed's going to run some practice races at 1. Usually the bow person's doing the time, maybe the trimmer's doing the meters, the distance, and the tactician is evaluating where we're talking to the driver, where we're going to start, how we're going to do it. So kind of a rough way to start is coming at the line, maybe at 60 meters, 60 seconds. Just experiment with this. If we have 8+ knots, we might have the jib rolled up. If it's less, we'll have the jib out. As we come to the line, we're watching the Velocitec. If the meters start going by really quickly, that could be a lot of things. It could be a right shift. It could be current behind us pushing out at the line. But we have to realize this early and slow the boat down early. If the meters are going really slow, why is that happening? It's a left shift. Maybe we have current against us. Maybe we need to put the bow down and roll the jib out earlier because we're not going to get to the line. So it's evaluating that distance and the time and making the best judgment. I see a lot of teams getting into trouble because they have kind of that old thought of, okay, someone's rolling over the top of us, reaching, coming down the line. They don't want to be over, and they're reaching down the line, and we roll our jib out and start screaming at them, leeward boat, and then we get ourselves in trouble. The better move is just, let's stay out of trouble. Bill Hardesty, I sail with him a lot. He's like, okay, let's just keep it really boring. We're not going to yell at anybody. We're not going to get near anybody. And all of a sudden at the end, after a bunch of boring 4s and 5s, we might have a chance to win the regatta. Okay, so that's kind of, in my mind, that's how you should approach a start. Don't try to kill the boat next to you. Try to give some space. Hey, sometimes I'm on port. We're both going to tack. Hey, let's be nice. Let's both have great starts. Let's try to win the pin. Let's not have this slant tack to leeward, almost too close, getting in some yelling battle, then some guy scoops both of us and pushes us over. So I think kind of a good thing to do is, some of you are new to the boat, but this coming to the line and do a bunch of practice starts and get a feel for the machine. The goal, of course, is maybe at the finding that right moment where we can put the bow down, roll the jib out, accelerating. Maybe it's 18 meters with 10 seconds to go. We put the bow down, we a little below close hauled, we roll the jib out, it's powerful, we accelerate, we're hiking, the foredeck pulls the in-hauler, and off we go. The backstay's already preset, the traveler's preset, all that good stuff, and we know we're fast from the lineup before. We have all our settings in the right spot. There's a mark on most of our jib sheets, there's a mark on most of our in-hauls, so I already in my head know the fine-tuned jib halyard has to be at 6, the working sheet is at 6, the in-haul is at 8, the jib car is at 7. So you kind of know all the settings, and so you're going to be quick. But that's kind of one little tip, is just kind of stay out of trouble, don't, and fight for every point. And this is more about the boat handling. And so on most of the boats I'm sailing, is the driver just focuses on the driving. Doesn't do the traveler, doesn't do the main sheet, just put the boat on the proper angle, listen to your team, and keep out of trouble, and that's the best the driver can do. Then there's the main trimmer. So the main trimmer is going to, a couple of the jobs is to tack the traveler, play the backstay. Maybe you have if you have a super talented driver, maybe they play the traveler, and then the tactician would trim the main sheet and the backstay. The backstay is in front of the traveler, so the driver's sitting here playing the traveler. The problem is we're gonna have some light races, so you want the driver to be really far forward. In super light, you want the traveler pinned all the way to the top. Sometimes I'm standing here and I kind of peek through here and say, oh, the traveler can go up another inch, because every inch you can get is gonna be a gain in this light stuff. Also, weight forward is really key. So in the super light, maybe the bow person, you don't want to be too much in the slot. The rule is you have to have your shoulder above here. So maybe the bow person sitting in here, maybe the boat heels a little bit, we hike to weather, to leeward. I'm trying to get as low as I can, but be legal. And then the jib trimmer is as far forward as possible. Sometimes I put my hand on the sheet and I put my thumb here and I play the sheet throughout this. So if we get a little bit of a header, I over trim the jib sheet. I say bow down a little bit. Becky's gonna turn the boat down, and then I go, okay, good angle, and I ease the sheet. Sometimes it's nice to have a little slack in this. So some of you aren't used to these double cleats. Okay, so the jib sheet is gonna come through here. It's gonna go in this cleat, and it's gonna go in this cleat. So if we keep a little bit of slack in there, if it's tight, you can't release it without uncleating it from here and uncleating it from here. If there's a little slack, anytime we get a light spot, let's say we get a big lift, I can blow it out of this cleat and it lets it off 2 inches. And maybe I jump to leeward a little bit because I'm lifted. I want to help turn the boat up. So I'm easing the jib, going to leeward, and helping the boat and talking to the driver. Okay? The tactician spot. This boat really, so there's a flicker on the top of some of the 70s. Most of us don't have them anymore. There's not one on this boat. And so if it's light, the trick is so I like to have really clear communication. Tacking in 3, 2, 1, tacking. Rolling, 2, 1, rolling. Squashing, 2, 1, squashing, right? Weight comes forward, travelers all the way up. So in the main sheet, you might have to pull the traveler all the way to the top in the roll, right? So let's just pretend I'm rolling from starboard to port. I pull the traveler, this is nice and long, which just makes it easier. We pull the traveler all the way to the top. The driver's gonna cross the boat, kind of in this light stuff, maybe first, and she's gonna cleat that traveler. So she's gonna cleat the traveler to weather. I'm gonna be playing the main sheet, okay? And then 2, 1, and maybe it's just the driver and one crew member coming in to squash. Get too much weight to weather, the boat's gonna wanna bear off, okay? And the tiller's gonna have to be pushed harder. We want to have the right amount of swash, get the feel for that. So that's the tacks. I guess the next would be the set. Okay, so there's a tack line, depending on your who weighs what, you know. Sometimes it's best in light air, it's fine to have a big person down to leeward. And let's say we're getting to the weather mark. Before we get to the weather mark, we blow the Cunningham off. Maybe on the offset leg, we let the out haul off. So these ties, I wish I had the sheets rigged, but we put the sheets, the tack line, even this weather sheet all tucks into one of these clips. And the spin halyard goes into, on our boat, we have another clip here. Okay, one of these ties. So maybe as we're coming to the mark, it's light, I'm helping this out, all these lines clear. Maybe we have a clip on this side, on our boat we do. Unclip that one, unclip the halyard, help the tack out. Okay, so it's either, sometimes it's the trimmer, maybe sometimes I'm easing the jib on the offset and I'm pulling the tack out. The bow person might be pulling the pole out. Sorry, setting the tack line. So as we're pushing the tack out, I'm pulling the tack line on this far right side. And I set it so that it's shy of the final mark, which is going to ensure that you're able to get the pole out. Because if you pull it all the way to the mark, this is like a real common mistake, is you pull it to the mark or even beyond the mark, and now we can't get the pole out. We can't get the pole out, so we end up blowing the tack line, and usually it goes up 10 feet, and then it's all luffing and you're getting rolled, and now you finally get the pole to the mark. On our boat, we have a mark, I'm not sure where it is on this boat, but it's probably, we've got a mark here, and you need, your team, if it were me, I'd probably whip a mark right here, make it red, instead of this not too visible black mark, you know, but this mark has to go below the cleat. If you don't see the mark, the pole's not out. The pole's not out, you're not gonna go very well downwind. So we preset the tack. So now, the hoist, okay?
Willem,
Yeah?
can I pause you for a second? Is there a class rule about when you can put the pole out?
Yes, yes. So the pole cannot go out until the act of setting. Okay? It can happen at the weather mark, it can happen before the weather mark, if you've overstood or a massive shift. But the pole cannot go out unless the halyard is going up. Great question. So, but the pole is very difficult to pull if the halyard's not going up. So I see like some people struggling with the pole, and what you do is just be patient. I know you want to get it out, you want to do your job great, but just be patient. And so I ease the jib on the offset, the jib trimmer, spin trimmer. I'm the heaviest on our boat, so probably I'll hoist a little bit to leeward, the kite goes up, and on my third or fourth pull, that's the moment that you should go for the pull. Because the kite's like halfway out. The pole's gonna be really easy to pull out. What you can do is these last couple feet of the pole, you can put a little Vaseline on it. That'll make that last 2 feet easier, okay? So that'll help get the pole out. And then as soon as the pole's made, it's like I like to keep close and just explode at the right time as the kite's going up, and it should be pretty easy. Instantly cleat it, right to the tack line, and pull that last 5 inches, okay? In more breeze, you want that to be maybe this far forward of the mark. In light air, it can be this. In super light, with a strong person pulling out the pole, it could be right at the mark. But my point being, you gotta make sure you get the pole out on the first try. So you get the pole out, 3, 2, 1, hoisting, spinnaker trimmer, 1, 2, 3, pull out. As soon as and then a lot of times I see the person cleat the pole, but they forget that last 5 inches of the tack line. And then let's just say it's planing, and now we can't get it. Now how could we get it? We could take it across. I should have rigged this whole thing, but we could put it across to this cleat and step on it, and that'll get that last little bit. Now I've seen some people put it around here, in here, and pull it this way. with the pole. You know, there's a few ways you can do it. I suggest going to the lure, but really, let's just get it on the first try. And that's just technique. It's as the kite's going up, pole goes out, right to the tack line, boom.
I think the big thing there, as he's saying, is, you know what your move is if you don't get it, right? And so the move is, if it's not out and you're not big and strong and you're not going to pull it out, use the boat to your advantage. So a lot of people come to the winch, you know, cleat it, and then you just jump on it. Get your 120 pounds and just jump on it, it's going to come out. It makes a big difference. Even if you are big, it's way easier. The other thing is the downside to pull out first, and we saw a lot of pull outs early with teams that were new to the boat and didn't know the rules. The other downside with breaking the rule of pulling the pole out first, yes, it's super easy to go out, but then the kite will go in the water. And so that's a big problem. There's not a lot of bow up there. So if you pull the pole out, then as you're trying to get the sail out to it, it's going to fall in the water. You're going to stop, and then it's going to be ugly.
And it's very hard to pull the pole because you're pulling the set. Like this one doesn't have a spin bag. So the kite's going to probably be on the leeward side, and you have to pull this whole thing around this corner. Instead, we just preset the tack almost to the mark, pull the pole out as the kite's coming up, and you're going to have a much better set. And the trick is to instantly make this, cleat it, and off we go. If we're planing, the jib stays out. If it's displacement, the big guys or gals gonna pull the kite up and then maybe put a little bit of jib halyard on and roll the jib nice and easy. I see a lot of spin trimmers like rush. They want to trim the kite right away, and they do a terrible roll up. They destroy the jib. You know, some jibs roll up nicer than others, and they're in such a rush that they just and they roll it up, and it's a terrible roll. And then they rush to the kite, and it's like, I've been sailing these boats for 5 years. I can handle the kite for a couple minutes, a couple seconds. Let's just do a nice roll up of the jib. Then they're going to take the spin sheet from in the set. Sorry, we'll go back a little. In the set, the tactician is going to trim the kite. So we kind of put before the start, we take the sheet and come around the winch in the cleat. So you're going to take it out of the cleat, off the winch, and be ready. The kite's going, maybe you're even easing the main sheet. Maybe some drivers are easing their own main sheet, and the main trimmer is just trimming the kite. And maybe just for 10 or 15 seconds until the jib's rolled up. Then they hand the sheet to the trimmer, and then they go weight to leeward, most likely this week.
So what happens is as the guy setting, which is Willem, which is the most common, the biggest guy on the boat is probably the spinnaker trimmer, and they pull it up because you can't trim the spinnaker till it's at the top. Literally, as he's finished, he can take an extra step back on that last pull and literally stick his hand down onto the sheet.
Yeah.
And then he's fully in mode of trimming and being in the right position.
What we like to do, and we've had a lot of success with Peter Duncan's programs, is I struggle with the last little bit. As soon as I know I'm going to get the kite up, I just say bow up. And Peter puts the bow up, especially in like a planing condition when you have to set and hold. You get this bow up, and if we can turn up before the other boats, we're going to have a higher lane and they can't defend. If we're planing, you just have this high lane. They don't want you there, but if they come up anymore, they're going to flip over. So you just roll boat after boat after boat by having a great set. So when as we're pulling the kite up, I've pulled 4 poles. I know I'm going to get it on the next pole. Bow up, and I just struggle that last little bit, and we get it up, and Becky's turned the bow up, and we're planing, and off we go.
So a lot of people will put kind of a line, another mark that's like almost there, but you can sail with. So maybe like a meter from the top. If you know you're past that, you know you can, like the tactician can say, hey, we got to go. Then you can go. And so that's kind of a nice thing to have as well sometimes.
You know, and sometimes, maybe you have a bright green mark, and as that comes out, I know I'm a meter from it, and then I have a bright orange mark at the made mark, and I just bow up, but I kind of just know it from so many years of doing it, this muscle memory, like on the 3rd pole or 4th pole, I'm like, bow up, and we turn up. A common mistake is over trimming the spin sheet. You over trim the spin sheet, the kite's powerful, and I can't get the kite all the way up. So maybe you want to be kind of a little bit on the east side, because really you want to get the kite up, the pole out, and the tack line made, right? If any of those things don't happen, then we have to luff the kite, pull the kite up, undo the tack line, pull the pole out. It's all really bad. And the best teams, what they do really well is they escape that weather mark. That first 30 boat lengths is incredibly important. If you can have a great set, roll the jib, get your weight in the right spot, weight forward, mains out, bangs off, out hauls, super eased. If we can get all those steps, like 2-3 boat lengths, or ideally even before the offset, even before the set, the backstay's gone off. I see a lot of boats go around, the travelers drop, the main's luffing on the offset leg. Let's keep the traveler. Maybe it's 5 to 8 knots. We go traveler in the middle. The whole downwind leg, the traveler's just locked in the middle. If it's planing, the traveler's all the way down. 0 vang. Any out haul, super ease. So, you know, we have to communicate that. So let's hypothetically say I'm on port. I'm getting lifted to the weather mark. That's a left shift. Maybe my call is, okay, set and hold, and let's say it's 8 or 9 knots. Perfect for wing. We could wing, set and hold. If we're going to go wing, we should jibe the kite to wing so that we're on the headed jibe. Okay, that's another thing, is the whole wing on wing, and it takes some practice and really clear communication. And I guess the next one we'll be talking about the jibes. We just did the set, so the jibes. How do we do it? Prepare to jibe. 3, 2, 1. The spinnaker sheet has to go super early. So we're trimming here. 2, 1, I'm easing it, and I go right to this. Maybe the bow person has flicked the sheet up high on the forestay so that we've taken an extra 6 or 7 feet out of the sheet. That's gonna help the kite come around. If it's down at the bottom, if it's locked in our little tie, you see this is taped here, that's to keep the sheet from falling through there. If the sheet falls through there and it's caught around the, you know, the forestay, that's gonna be an issue in the jibe. That's like one of my little pet peeves with whoever's the bow person on the Duncan program, is like, boom, the kite goes up, fix that immediately. I want to be ready to jibe just in case we have to jibe quickly. We're in a right shift, we want to jibe fast. Okay, so in the jibe, driver turns, maybe sometimes I see people really throw the boom across and it's gonna make the kite weak. So just be smooth, let the main come when it wants, or just before. Roll the boat, kite comes around, main comes across, 2, 1, and squash. And a little bit of weather weight, boat accelerates, okay? And maybe there's a little bit of weather weight, but as soon as the boat's at the new proper angle, you want the bow person, probably, and the tactician to jump back to leeward. Now a trick in displacement, I don't mean to be jumping around a lot, excuse me if I am, but if it's displacement, you want a little more weight on the low side. So on some boats, it's real common to have a big driver and a big trimmer. But what happens is you have the 2 smaller people like pinned to leeward and they can't move at all. So on a couple programs I've said, hey, let's let her trim the kite, because all of a sudden, instead of having 60 extra pounds on the high side, we do a switch and now we have 30 or 40 extra pounds on the low side. That's a pretty big gain, because when I'm trimming, if there's a little more weight here to leeward, when I lean in, the boat wants to head up, and then I can squash. And this light, let's say it's Stephanie Roble on my program, Stephanie can listen to me and I say, down 2, and she can do a little squash, and I go up to weather. Bow up, she comes to leeward, I step in, the boat's moving. We have the ability to sail it more like a dinghy. If you have too much weather weight, I'm constantly moving. If I, you know, sometimes when I sailed with, in the past, let's say Joel Ronning, he's 200 pounds, I'm 190. We had Victor to leeward and Hardesty to leeward, that was less weight. And the bigger trimmer, we have to consciously be more to leeward so that we have the ability to move. But if there's like 2 trimmers and they're kind of equal, maybe we say, okay, you're trimming in the planing, and I'm trimming in the displacement. So if it's 5 to 9 knots, you might say, hey, let's have, maybe she's a little less, or he is a little less experienced, but the weight is in such a much better spot with the weight to leeward. So we talked about the jibes. Now there's the wing, okay? The wing's pretty tricky, and you have to, there's some boat speed numbers that you should kind of know. It's like, if you're doing over 6 in displacement, you can probably wing. If you're doing over 9 and 8.5 in displacement, you probably should be planing. If you're doing under 5.5, you should probably be getting out of wing. So there's some numbers and you kind of get a little feel for it. When you go into wing and you lose the kite, if you lose it for a little bit, that's not a big loss. But if you lose it and then lose it again and then lose it again, you're really losing. So that move is, let's jibe the main out of wing. And one little tip is, as a driver, turn the boat much more than you think. Because we throw the boom across, we have something to squash against. If you just turn a little bit, the boom barely comes across, the boat is parked. So come out of those jibes hotter than you think. In the super light, we might be jibing through 90-ish degrees. So maybe as the driver, there's land everywhere almost out here, so just look down the traveler. Okay, I'm gonna jibe, and that's pretty much what I'm gonna go at, 90 degrees. Okay, super light, maybe I'm even gonna turn 110. I gotta turn beyond that. So you have a little bit of an idea, and sometimes you can be looking at other boats ahead of you and their angles, but you wanna come out higher than you think, out of jibes, out of wing, all that stuff. So let's say the wing, it's gotta be super clear communication. Sometimes a tactician just says, okay, let's go to wing. I'm like, okay, there's 2 ways to do that. We can jibe the kite to wing, we can jibe the main to wing. We're in a header, let's jibe the kite to wing. So we're just sailing in displacement. We're doing over 6 knots. It's 9 knots a wind. Okay, perfect wing. We're in a header, jibing the kite to wing. 3, so the driver, so let's just say we're on starboard here, and I'm like, okay, get ready to wing, jibing the kite to wing. We come to weather, we rotate the kite. Erica, you're gonna have to turn the boat more than you think. You're gonna have to go by the lee. The boom is gonna wanna jibe. You're almost doing a jibe without the boom coming across. You go by the lee, you rotate the kite, it's gonna pop, completely fill. As soon as it pops, Becky, what are we gonna do? We're gonna head up a lot because we've gone by the lee. So we're by the lee, now we have to head up 30 or 40 degrees. And the goal is for the Windex to be pointing pretty much at this corner. Okay? And if the trimmer's really great, he or she's looking up at that pretty frequently, and we're having this little bit higher angle. Now there's someone, the bow person, we're in wing, and he or she's looking back, calling the breeze. If it gets lighter and bumpier, we need more weather weight. If it's getting flatter and breezier, we can sail the boat a little more flat. What's the trick to not lose the kite? Having the boat heeled to weather enough. Because as the boat gets flat, what does the clue want to do? It wants to fall into the middle of the boat. So when I get in trouble, I say, I need a little more weather weight, more weather weight. Stephanie's probably holding the boom out. Steph, I need you to come to weather a little bit. And as it gets more stable, we can sail the boat more flat. Obviously the rudder pushed away with all this heel, because the heel makes the boat want to turn down. The rudder's making the boat go straight by pushing on it. That's not fast, but that's faster than losing the kite. Okay? Does that make sense? So if we're gonna jibe the kite to wing, I might say, we're on starboard, I might say, turning left, jibing the kite to wing, turn quick, driver, you're not gonna switch sides, okay? And she's just gonna turn down, 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 the kite's gonna pop, now head up, 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 get the Windex to pretty much point here at Dave, and then we're good.
So I think there's a few notes here to think about with the wing side of things. So your 6 to 8 knots are big ones, you're pushing it probably positionally otherwise, so those are very important. Him talking about the traveler angle for coming out of a jibe, weather weight, when you're on the edge, and remember, like he said, weather weight is helping the boat drive for you. So those are big things to think about with the wing. Being new to the wing, I'd practice it. Be careful about doing too much of it when we're racing until you're comfortable. And the other thing that he didn't mention yet was, remember when you're holding the kite down. Yeah, he bled for you guys.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
He leaves everything on the boat, clearly. You can't get your body can't go over the lifeline. So you kind of got to sit square. If you want to sit how you'd sit wing and show.
Yeah, so
because class rules, you can't hike, right? So that'd be the same thing as hiking. So
like this, and what I'll do a lot of times is put my even legs here and be like this. Yeah. You can't be way out here. You can't stand on here. You know, a lot of times I'm one leg out like this.
He's being really careful not to lean because his body wants to lean, and so, you know, he's obviously fit only because of doing wing. That's the only reason why he's fit. And what you can do also when you're getting, your balance is you kind of wedge yourself in here. If you're my size, you don't move if you get in there, but if you're smaller, but that's kind of a good thing. That's not moving. It's what people love about the winches, I think, right? But anyways, you gotta be sideways, but not be leaning. And it's hard. It's very hard. So be careful about going too long. I've sailed where it's been a huge gain to keep going and just bear with it. It's painful, but it's fast. But I think that 6 to 8 is what he's talking about is a big thing for the wing. And don't try to hang on to it too long, especially when you're learning it.
Yeah. So we want to also make the drops really easy. Okay. We have some new teams, new bow. On our boat, I'm going to try to do as the spinnaker trimmer, or Stephanie, ideally as the tactician, should try to put us in a situation where we can come in with, let's say we want to do a left turn. I want to make it as easy on Elizabeth and Hannah as possible, so I want to have the kite on the left side, the main on the right side. We're going straight in left turn. That's super easy. And then the kite, let's just say we're coming in straight to do a left turn. The kite is right there, right? So the bow person goes over the lazy sheet, grabs the foot as far forward as possible. As soon as they have it, they say, I got it. Right then, it's usually me as the trimmer, I blow the pull. We pull a couple pulls on it. Then I go halyard. The halyard has already been flaked. This boat doesn't have a bag, so you got to be careful of what you put it in. Maybe you put a bucket on the floor and you flake the halyard into the bucket, starting at the knot, put the whole halyard in, put it in the hook, and now you're ready to drop. Okay, so then they've got the foot collected. Then I go halyard, and I'm watching the pole. I see the pole coming in. As soon as the pole is all the way in, then I can let the tack line off. So don't rush the tack line. But anytime we can make that kind of drop happen, it's going to be better. So
the pole's not going to just come in. So it's okay to get that off because that's so important. Because that collapses that bottom of the foot. So remember that. You can just pull, undo the cleat, and then start your actions.
If the pole is uncleated in the action of the drop, it's the first action on a lot of drops, that'll ensure that the pole comes in. The last thing you want to do is round the mark, the pole's out, and the driver has to I could go in there, but I can't because the pole is out, So let's go in that order. And I try to set the boat up so that, okay, we want to go left turn. Here's a real common mistake. Let's say you're coming from a Melgus 24. The Melgus 24 doesn't do wing very much, but I bet in certain spots you could gain by it. We jibe a little earlier because in a Melgus 24 we go all the way to ley line or a Viper. We jibe on ley line and we do this, we call it like the Mexican drop, right? A jibe left turn. And the boat kind of stalls in that move. Instead, in the J70, let's say it's 9 knots, wind's coming from my back, we jibe a little bit early. So now we're coming to the mark, no problem, piece of cake. We're going to jibe the main to wing. Right here, we jibe the main to wing. We have the kite on this side. We're 7 lengths away. Here we come, sailing less distance, losing less speed, making it easier on the bow team. All pretty big positives, right? Let's say we're coming in on port and there's no boat around and we've missed ley line by a little bit. What can we do? Right here, bear off, jibe the kite to wing. Kite comes over, Here we come, the last 7 boat lengths in wing. Instead, what some of you will do, which is the wrong move, is you'll come to here or you'll sail real deep with the kite collapsed, trying to make the mark, getting the boat to 0. And you just, this sucks, but it's only 5 more lengths. So instead, you might go to here, do a full jibe, get to here, okay, how are we gonna do it? Mexican, or we come to here, we jibe, we go full jibe, and then we go 4 lengths and we gotta pull the kite. We just pulled it around to the starboard side. Now we gotta pull it all the way to the port side to drop. Let's avoid all that and choose the right time to go to wing and make it super easy on the bow team. Then the jib rolls out on the right side, the kite's on this side, it's all super easy. We drop the kite.
And that's where that 6 to 8 knots doesn't matter anymore. Now it's a positional wing, not a, this is ideal time for wing. This is now an ideal time for wing because positionally you're gonna benefit from it, whether it's light air or heavy air. And that's gonna be huge for that douse, which is huge for boat lengths. You know, all your starts and your mark roundings is where you make tons of gains. And so keep that opportunity by using the wing that this boat has.
So at a finish line, let's say, you know, this is the finish line between here and here, and we're sailing like this. Well, if we go to wing, we're now perpendicularing the line. We're sailing less distance. That's a big gain. If there's a bunch of boats around, that could be 2 or 3 boats. So that might be a point, you know, in a big pack, you're almost always better at a wing at the finish because you're going straight down, almost straight downwind. If you're reaching and then having to jibe, instead we just bear off, jibe the kite to wing and just go use that momentum to coast and go DDW, you're gonna finish maybe 4 or 5 seconds early just by going to wing earlier.
If you watch any of the videos that I do when I'm out there, I'm usually talking through them. And so when they're coming into the finish, I'm talking about who has the opportunities and who's going to take benefits from the wing and things like that. And so if you go to any of our videos from the Davis Island series or Bacardi, you can just listen as well. Don't put it on mute because I'm usually talking about what's going on and talking through how somebody gained because they went wing or screwed up a wing or that type of thing.
Obviously we don't want to go upwind with the kite or in the water or still up. So, you know, give ourselves, that's great communication helps that. Doing the right decisions. Sometimes the tactician's like, my bow person just can't get the kite down. Well, I can make it a hell of a lot easier than you are on the bow person. I mean, you're calling a jibing at the wrong time. You're not going ever to wing. Like that's all making it really tough on the bow team. So how can we make it easier? How can we sail less distance? How can we do less maneuvers? How can we make it easy? Well, that all comes to communication and knowing how to wing, when to wing. You know, in that 6 to 8 knots is tough to wing. 5 to 8 knots, that's tough. Maybe at a finish or a leeward mark. Once it's 8 to 14, that's like the full sweet spot of the wing. Now it's over 14, you're kind of struggling in the wing because it's so windy. That's probably the time to jibe the main out of wing, roll the jib out, and start planing.
Yeah, so remember the 6 to 8 knots is the bow speed, not the wind speed of when you want to wing. So let's start to wrap this up because we're getting
anyway,
pretty far.
unless there's sorry about
Yeah,
going a little
that's
long,
right.
but
Is there any questions first?
any questions?
So many.
Well, when you can ask him anytime during the week. Willem's always available for anyone. I'm available. A lot of the pros really are. A couple things I'm going to let you in on a secret of just got passed. We're now going to have a second cleat here as being legal as of apparently Tuesday. And this is going to be able to go from 4 to 1 to 8 to 1, which makes it a lot easier. So when you are wondering why this is difficult, it's usually not as difficult to pull in. It's difficult to ease, so you end up easing too much. So that's going to go up. So a couple things that the class has gone to make life easier that are going to happen. So second cleat just helps this from being blown out. Of course, the worry we always have is that this breaks. But
Are you going to build like a little?
I have some already.
Oh, perfect.
Because Melgus 24s already use them. So we already have those. So you basically just the second cleat goes on with different fasteners here. And then I have an easy setup to make this, to double this purchase. And then I'll look for a Gucci way that we do as well. But that makes life a lot easier. So if you have any questions on anything, just let us know. Ask anytime. And you know, this event is for everybody learning. And so I think it's going to be awesome.
So a little rig tune, just a little tiny bit. If the boat has this weird feeling like it wants to just constantly head up, it's because your rig is too soft. So in like the Melgus 24, I'm often the trimmer and I'm hiking, and And out of my eye, I'm peeking at the telltales. And if the driver's constantly pinching, I tighten the rig. If the boat kind of doesn't want to head up enough, that's because the rig is too tight. So that's like a little bit of a trick. One really useful tool, like sail the boat, set the boat up for the conditions of the first leg. And then let's say we set up for light air and it gets windier. What can we do? Well, in-haul less, put the backstay on super tight, let the traveler down. What I say from the rail is tight leeches. I say, like, the rig is too soft for what we have now, let's go more tight leeches. The opposite would be the rig's too loose. The opposite would be the rig's too tight. What can we do? Traveler up, a little less out-haul, more in-haul, less jib tune, fine-tuned jib halyard. You know, all those things that give power. So the backstay, the course tune backstay is super important tool, okay? If this Travis looks like he's got it about the right spot, what I do without a flicker, if this is super loose, you see it's kind of hanging towards the main. So I pull it just to where these get pretty high. So I would pull this a little tighter even in the light air, because in the tacks and jibes, it's going to be less of an issue without a flicker. Now, this is like in the perfect spot. It's about, I don't know, 16 inches above down here. When we go 8 and 8 on the rig and breeze, the mast is going to come back and this ring is going to come down. And I have to max this out. Sometimes I see this maxed out, but this thing is still loose. So if this is loose, talk to Ed or myself, and maybe what we do is do a little bowling in here so that this goes higher and we have more range with the backstay. So this is a really important tool. Sometimes we go 8 and 8 on the rig, but we have no backstay on. And maybe this is all the way down. You're like, okay, well, if this is all the way down and I pull the backstay, watch this. Once that V gets down there, I'm really just pulling these blocks apart. This is not very tight, you see? So, if we tighten this, let me just, 5 more seconds, because this is like a huge tip. And sometimes I see very good, even pros sailing with that really. So now, that's pretty tight, okay? And now, when I pull this on, this is a little on the short side. Okay, so now, that's tight. Okay.
Look at the distance differences. He went from 16 to 8. He didn't go very far, but that's a huge difference.
So then, in the old days in San Fran, Hardesty would pull that on as hard as he can. Now we go downwind, we're planing. My job as a spin trimmer to ease that off because Billy's back there. I'm like, whoa, boom! I mean, it's tight. And I'm doing it with one hand, so you got to be careful because that's got a lot of load. But my point being is if you're overpowered, quickly go to too tight on the rig. Don't just follow the guide. Let's say, okay, a couple of these all-lady teams are 660 pounds. You're very light. You really should be closer to 730. So instead of being just looking at the tuning guide to say 12 knots, that's 3 and 2 up. Say, we're pretty light. Let's go 2 steps above that. Okay? So that's all I have. Thanks for coming. And if you have any questions out there, feel free to ask me.
If you have any questions too, you can put them on that event that we've created. That way everyone learns. That's huge. Or if you just want to text myself or Willem or private message, then we can post them. There's no dumb questions at all. At all. I mean, there really aren't. We get all kinds of questions. So just remember that. And so if you really don't want to put it public, just text me and we'll get it up there. And, you know, I won't tell too many people who it was. All right, should be a good weekend, guys.